Okay, we're up to the Mishnah on Pei Aleph Amid Aleph. We're up to the Mishnah on Pei Aleph Amid Aleph, and we're going to continue to discuss the Sris. We're going to go ahead and introduce androgynous, what the status of androgynous is, and we're going to have a very interesting Gemara of something that we know, that a subject that we're familiar with over the years. Says the Mishnah, Sris Chama Kayin. So again, he can't have children. Shenasa Bas Yisrael, who goes ahead and marries a Bas Yisrael. Machila b'truma. Now he goes ahead and he feeds a truma. The Gemara is going to ask L'charetz Pasha, why just because he can't give chalitza, just because he's chayv elavim, why can't he feed a truma? After all, she's kinyan kasboy. Once the kedushin is chal, you kinyan kasboy, you go ahead and you eat. That's called kinyan kasboy. You go ahead and you feed truma. Rabbi Yossi Reb Shimon Oimrim, androgynous kayin, an androgynous kayin shenasa bas Yisrael. Now, an androgynous has both siman, a male and female. If he marries a bas Yisrael, machila b'truma, she would go and feed truma. So obviously, Rabbi Yossi and Reb Shimon are of the opinion that will view an androgynous as a zachar, as a male, and will view him as a male kayin, and therefore he can go ahead and feed truma. Rabbi Yehuda says, tumtum shenikra, a tumtum that you ripped away. Again, a tumtum is one or the other, and it's covered up. You rip away the membrane that's covering the nimsa zachar. Lo yachleitz, you can't do chalitza because he's like a suris. Okay, the Gemara will discuss all these things. And finally, androgynous, an androgynous can be a male and marry a female. Avalanisa, but an androgynous cannot be a female and marry a male. So she can be a male, but not a female. Androgynous chayav l'skila kizachar, yichayv skila with the din of revia as homosexuality, as we'll see. Now, regarding the first din of the Mishnah, that's all we care about today, is a sris chama kayin that marries a bas Yisrael, he can feed a truma. It says pshita. Why not? Why shouldn't he be able to feed a truma? What's the problem? Now, the pasuk says kinyan kasboy, and then it says v'yelid beisai. So you would think the following: Madutema moilid Michael, one who yelid is able to father a child, would feed, and therefore since this shris she'ena moilid does not father a child, Eina Michael cannot feed truma. Kamashal on the Mishnah that what? No, it's kinyan kasbo. We go over the kinyan kasbo part, and if the yelid beisai part, and therefore what? Since it's kinyan kasbo. Any kinyan kasbo v'koyin, whether it's a wife, it's an eved, or even a chamar, would be able to eat truma. Rabbi Yossi Reb Shimon Oimrim, androgynous. Rabbi Yossi Reb Shimon were of the opinion that an androgynous is a male, and therefore an androgynous koyin would feed his wife truma. Amreish Lakish, ma'chila b'truma ve'in ma'chila b'chaz b'shaik. So we're familiar with the certain matnas kahuna. One of them is the truma that's very popular. Chaz v'shaik is the chest and the right back foot that the kohen gets from every korban. We met it earlier in the Masechta. We said that if a bas kohen gets married, has no children, and she gets married to Yisrael, she loses her right to eat truma. When she goes back to daddy's house, she gets the right to eat truma. However, ein chayzeres b'chaz v'shaik, she would not be able to go back and eat the chaz v'shaik. That's the time in this Masechta we were introduced to this. So now, the Reish Lakish is of the opinion that an androgynous would feed his wife truma, but not chaz v'shaik, which is kind of hard to understand. After all, if you're a zachar, you should feed both, and if you're not a zachar, then you should feed neither. So what's the chilik between truma that you do feed and chaz v'shaik that you don't feed? Rabbi Yochanan is of the opinion, af ma'achila b'chaz v'shaik. You can even go ahead and feed the chaz v'shaik. Mashma that like Rabbi Yochanan, we're going to view the androgynous as a full-fledged zachar, whereas Reish Lakish views it as a suffix zachar, suffix nekeva. Okay, so if you're a zachar, it's suffix zachar, it's mashma you do feed truma, but you don't feed chaz v'shaik. If you're a vadei zachar, then you would do both. For the Gemara, the obvious question: Reish Lakish, ma'ishna chaz v'shaik de araisa, and therefore you do, since it's a suffix, the status of this androgynous, you can't feed the chaz v'shaik. That's obviously, that must be the only svara. That must be the only svara. Or else, why in the world would you not be able to feed? It must be because maybe you're not a male. So in a deraisa will be machmer and say 1 second, therefore you don't feed the chaz v'shaik. That's the svaras of Reish Lakish. Truma nami deraisa. Truma is also deraisa. So the same suffix you had chaz v'shaik that does not feed, the androgynous can't feed his wife. Who adin truma. So how can you make Reish Lakish make the chilik and say truma yes, chaz v'shaik no? If you're treating it as a suffix, then the same suffix is of deraisa is by truma as it is by chaz v'shaik. And for the Gemara, but truma bisman hazeh d'Rabbanan. It's speaking about truma bisman hazeh, which is d'Rabbanan. So really, it's like a suffix deraisa l'chum, a suffix d'Rabbanan l'kula. Since I don't know what this is, whether it's a man or a woman, when it comes to the chaz v'shaik, which is clearly deraisa, I won't feed. But truma, which is d'Rabbanan, right? Okay. Now, what happens if the truma is deraisa? Then you won't feed that either, correct? In other words, if the truma is deraisa, there's no distinction between truma and chaz v'shaik, so you wouldn't feed that as well. So Fred the Gemara, as it always does, why do you have to introduce a new topic to tell me a chiddush that you could have told me in the topic you were just discussing? We were discussing truma. You jumped to chaz v'shaik. I could have told me the chiddush whether the suffix deraisa d'Rabbanan by truma. Says the Gemara. Taimo, it's hachmai skina b'truma b'zman hazeh d'Rabbanan. Aval b'zman shebeis hamikdash kayim mai loy. So b'zman beis hamikdash you would not eat truma. The androgynous would not feed his wife truma. So therefore, adetani ein my chila b'chaz v'shaik. Why do you have to jump to the topic of chaz v'shaik to say you don't feed? Liflug v'lisni b'dida. You could have gone ahead and tell me the chiddush in truma itself. B'medim amamurim. When does a androgynous, who's a suffix isha suffix ish, feed his wife? Truma, that's truma d'Rabbanan. But truma d'Oraisa loy, but truma d'Oraisa not. So why did you jump to chaz v'shaik? The Gemara answers, you're not speaking about the chaz v'shaik. You're speaking about the zman of the chaz v'shaik. You're speaking about the time of the chaz v'shaik. Hachanami kamar kishu ma'chila. When you feed truma, ma'chila b'truma b'zman hazeh d'Rabbanan. The androgynous only feeds like truma b'zman hazeh d'Rabbanan. Ve'ein ma'chila b'zman hazeh ve'ein ma'chila b'zman chaz v'shaik. And you would not feed truma afilu d'Rabbanan b'zman the chaz v'shaik, because begoiza d'Rabbanan at the raisa dilma asi lachuli b'truma d'Oraisa. Okay, so let's go. Let's chazrib what we just saw. Let's recap it, and we'll catch Pinchas Eliyahu up to par. We're dealing with an androgynous. The Mishnah said an androgynous, a kohen feeds his wife truma. Says Reish Lakish, that's only truma, but not chaz v'shaik, not the matnas kahuna of the shlamim. He would not feed that to his wife. Says Rabbi Yochanan, even the chaz v'shaik. So clearly the machlokes is contingent upon how you view an androgynous. Reish Lakish, let's start the easier part. Rabbi Yochanan viewed the androgynous as a vadai zachar. If he's a vadai zachar, he feeds his wife truma, he feeds his wife chaz v'shaik. Whereas Reish Lakish viewed the androgynous as a suffix. You don't know what he is or she. You don't know if it's a he, she. Bisman hazeh, we would give it a name, right? But we're not speaking bisman hazeh, right? We're speaking, right? We're speaking in the time when men were men and women were women, right? So now, truma, you would feed, but chaz v'shaik not. Is mechadesh the Gemara that halacha that he said truma is only truma d'Rabbanan. Why? Because it's a suffix and a suffix d'Rabbanan, you could be mekel. Masha'enkein, if it was truma d'Oraisa, you couldn't. So why do you bring in chaz v'shaik? So tell me the din by truma. Chaz v'shaik was coming to define when is the truma you feed only when it's not like the chaz v'shaik. But when it's like the chaz v'shaik, meaning it's a time in the Beis Hamikdash and it's the Oraisa, then you would not feed. Now, truma d'Rabbanan also you wouldn't feed because with goyis d'Rabbanan at the Oraisa. If we let the androgynous let his wife, let's say truma d'Rabbanan guys would be any grain that's not doggone tiroish, not wine, not yitzah, not olive oil. So any fig, any dates, any pomegranates would all be truma d'Rabbanan, pashtus, right? If that be truma d'Rabbanan, even in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, the androgynous would not feed his wife those fruit, even though the Rabbanan. Why? Because with Geyser, if we let him feed that, you may have to feed either dogan tirish for yitzah. That's what we did so far. Good. That's the machlokes. Okay, the next piece of Gemara, I'm going to be magdim hakdama, a very important hakdama. We know midaraisa that bittul is beroiv. Achrei rabim lahatas. You have a 2-to-1 ratio, midoraisa. If things in Hilchas Tarubis, if things get mixed together, 2-to-1, midoraisa batal. We also are familiar with the concept of noisein tam. If the things that got mixed together, one is able to give tam to the other, you need shishim to be mavatlin. You need shishim. There are other objects which were more machmer, not shishim, truma. If truma gets mixed in with chulin, or truma tamei, or truma tahira, the ratio is 100-to-1. Orla and klei kerem, the first 3 years of a fruit-bearing tree, or klei kerem was mixed in kalayim of a vineyard, that's 1 in 200. Beyond that, there's the concept of a dava chashuv. A dava chashuv is afilu be'elef leibatal. Something that is chashuv, even in 1,000, it's not going to be batal. What constitutes chashivas is usually is something that could be counted. If when I sell it, I'm going to count it, that's a dava chashuv, and it won't be batal afilu be'elef. With that idea of a dava chashuv not being batal, and it depends upon being counted, does it mean only counted or most of the time counted? In other words, sometimes I'll sell eggs counting the amount of eggs, and sometimes I'll sell eggs with an umdina. Oh, there is a dozen eggs, I'll have in container, a not dozen eggs, or you put eggs in a big basket and you're going to sell a bushel of eggs. Right? So therefore, eggs are most of the time counted, but sometimes they're sold by an estimation. Oh, there must be about 3 dozen eggs in that container. I'll give it to you. Okay. Says Reish Lakish, as long as sometimes it's counted, right? Then it'll be a dava chashuv and it's not batal. Says Rabbi Yochanan, only things that are only counted and never sold the estimation. And on that, we only have a list of 6 things or perhaps 7 things. So kol shedakar limonos means most of the time counted, but not always. Es shedarka means always counted. Okay? So now we're somehow going to bring this into a sugya to explain the machloikis between Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan vis-a-vis androgynous going ahead and eating truma d'rabbanan d'oraisa. Okay? So now, says the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, says Rabbi Yochanan, Af ma'achilu b'chaz b'shayk. The androgynous can feed his wife b'chaz b'shayk. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Now, mi sarvish truma b'zman hazeh d'rabbanan. Do you hold that truma in this day and age is d'rabbanan? Amalei in. I do. Shani shayna, because I learned the following. Igul be'igulim oila. If you have, they used to go ahead, we had in Masechli Elim Etzias, right? An eagle devela. They would go ahead, they would take figs and press it into what? A cake, a kind of a round cake. So now, let's say you got mixed in here truma. It would be oila what? In 1 in 100. Why? Because I learned kol shedakar limus. Now, without Rashi over here, guys, we're totally lost. Without Rashi over here, we're totally lost. Let's go to Rashi. Mi sarvis truma b'zman hazeh. Go up about a little above the halfway point. Mi sarvis truma b'zman hazeh d'rabbanon. You hold that truma in this day and age is d'rabbanon. The komuk mislo lemasnisan b'midi d'rabbanon. That you said on Mishnah that an androgynous can feed truma is the rabbanon. For asus le b'chaz v'shayk, and you asked the chaz v'shayk was the raisa. Shani shayna. Why? Because I learned brisa. Here's the brisa. Eagle shel truma. You have a cake, a round thing of truma. Batal b'meya shel chulin. It's shaykh to the ratio of bittul of 1 to 100. Or eagle shel truma temeya batal the kufi gulim shel truma tahira. Or you have 100-to-1 ratio, truma, temeya, batal in the 100 of tahira. The truma v'zman hazeh d'oraisa, kivin the eagle dava chashavhu, v'darkali manis, kivin the eagle is a dava chashavhu, and it's normally counted. Lay batal, it should not be batal. It should be a dava chashav, and it shouldn't be batal at all. Afagav the truma is taken in the rabba. Okay, that's a kasha. So now. Reish Lakish is of the opinion, fellas. Listen now, outside. Reish Lakish of the opinion is that an igule devela, since it's counted most of the time, is a dava chashiv and it shouldn't be batal. When is that? Only when it's a deraisa situation. If it's a derabanan situation, I will be makel. So you know why I learned that this eagle, again, this eagle clearly the Brisa says this date is batal. There's two possibilities is batal. Either because it's not a dava chashiv, or it is a dava chashiv and it's speaking bisman hazeh and it's the rabbanon. Guys, again, one more time. We have a given. This eagle devela will be batal. If it's truma with chulin, if it's truma tamei with truma toira, it will be batal. Now, if it's a dava chashiv, fellas, then it shouldn't be batal, correct? So there's two ways for it to work. One, it's a dava chashiv, and it's bisman hazeh, and it's the rabbanon, and since it's the rabbanon, I'll say it's batal. Or it's speaking bisman beis hamikdash, and what? And it's not a dava chashiv. So if you hold kol shedarkoi, something that most of the time is counted, then it's a dava chashiv. So therefore, in order to be batal, it would have to be, it's speaking bisman hazeh. Conversely, if you hold it's not a dava chashiv, you're not forced to say it's speaking bisman hazeh. So that machloikis by eagle influences the way Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan viewed our Mishnah. Androgynous, that is feeding truma d'Rabbanan, it has to be truma d'Rabbanan. Why? Because we see that we're makel. Why? Because it was deraisa, we wouldn't be makel. Where do you see that idea of truma being makel? We see it by an eagle devela that should be not bottled because it's a dava chashiv, because I hold kol shedarka limnois, and nonetheless it is bottled because it's the Rabbanan. So who are din regarding the halacha of a suffix androgynous? I'll go ahead and say what? It's the Rabbanan. But if you hold eagle devela is not bottled because it's bottled, because it's not a dava chashiv, because you learn only those 6 things, then it could be speaking afil deraisa. Says the Gemara inside. Let's see it now again. Rabbi Yochanan af machila b'chaz b'shayk. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Mi savish shuma b'zman hazeh d'Rabbanan. Do you hold shuma in this day and age of Rabbanan that you makel? Amalei in. I do. Shani shoyna eagle b'igulim oila. I hold eagle b'igulim oila, and therefore, and since I learned kol shedarka limnois, it should be a dava chashiv and not batal. So what's the reason it is batal? It's because it's the Rabbanan. So Amalei, so said Rabbi Yochanan, ani shoyna chaticha b'chatichais oila, a piece of chatas, which is a dava chashiv, it's a chaticha, among chatas, which is speaking certainly bisman that it's the raisa, it's a piece of chatas, oila. Mi savris kol shedarka limana sheninu. Do we hold that you, like you say, kol shedarka limanos, and that would make an eagle a dava chashiv? Esh shedarka limanos sheninu. I learned esh shedarka limanos. Fellas, how in the world can you go ahead and be mevatel a chatas? Let's say chatas tameya gets mixed in with a bunch of chatas pieces. Certainly, a slice of chatas is a dava chashiv. It's a chaticha roy diskabe. It's a dava chashiv. It's a dava chashiv using our rule of thumb that a dava chashiv is not batal, correct? Then it should not be batal, but it is, and it's the raisa. And you know why that is? Because Rabbi Yochanan learned esh shedarka limnois, only these 6, 7 things, but nothing else. Eagle is not one of these 6, 7 things, and therefore it's, you know why it's batal? Because it's not the raisa. Because no, it's not. It's you know why it's not batal? Because it's not a dava chashiv. I keep on going around in circles, right? Let's again one more time. We have a given. Here's the given: that an eagle is not batal. It is batal. Excuse me. An eagle is batal. Why? Why is it batal? I got 2 possibilities: either because it's not a davar chashiv, or it is a davar chashiv and it's the rabbanan. Reish Lakish opts for the latter. It's what? It's not. It is a davar chashiv, but it's the rabbanan, and therefore, since the rabbanan were makel, I have my pshat. Therefore, by truma the rabbanan, we can be makel by that joyginess. Says Rabbi Yochanan, no, there's nothing to do with the rabbanan. It's the raisa. The eagles. The eagle is what? The reason it's batal is because it's no different than anything else. It's not a double chashiv because I don't learn kol, I learn s. Where's my raya from? A carbon chatos. Carbon chatos is zicha speaking deraisa, correct? There's no one who calls the. I have a piece that's a double chashiv. It gets mixed in with a bunch of other pieces, and I don't say that since it's chashiv, it's not batal. Why do I say it's batal? Now, why? It's a double chashiv, and the answer is it's not one of the double chashuvim. Guess what? Eagle is also not one of the double chashuvim. So therefore, you're not locked into saying the reason why you can't eat the eagle is the rabbanon. The reason why it's batal is the rabbanon. The reason it's batal is because it's not chashiv. The Mela that just explained the two shittas of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. I don't know if I can explain it any better. I hope so. I hope you got it. Says the Gemara. Where is this chilik between kol and es? That nan. Misha hoyu loy chavili tilson. You have chavili tilson, this type of fenugreek. Shel klei karim, which usually is bottle 1 in 200. Yadliku, you go ahead and you burn it because it's asabahana. Pentukadesh, guys. It says tukdash, and we look at Rashi, the last line. We take the word tukdash, which says in the Torah, and we break it up into two words. Tukadesh. You burn it in fire. That's what you're supposed to do. Let's say you don't do that. Let's say misavray ba'cheros amid beis. Let's say it gets mixed in with others. It gets mixed in with others. Kulon yelikai. They all get burnt. Divrei Meya. So Remeya says that what? That it's not going to go ahead. What? It's why? Why isn't that? Because he's going to hold this a double chashiv. So kulon yadlikai. You're going to go ahead and it's going to be batal in Messiah. Why? Why is that? Guys, you got it now. Since Chavili Tilson, most of the time people count by sales, they count it. Therefore, it's a double chashiv. Therefore, it won't be batal. With the Chacham say no, it will be batal 1 in 200. You know why? Because it's not. I don't learn kol shedarkoi. I learn esh shedarkoi. So the machloikas that we were makdim between Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan, this is the machloikas Tanoim in the Mishnah in Arla to explain this. So this Gemara comes up a few places in Shas. We have had it quite a few times. It says the Gemara Chachamim Weiver Einu Mekadesh Ela Shisha Devarim Bilbad. Only 6 things are davar chashuvim. And Rabbi Akiva Omer Shiva. Rabbi Akiva adds another 1-7. Elu Hein. These are the 6 things. Egoizi Prach Perach. These are dates. These are nuts from Perach. V'rimoni Badon. These are pomegranates from Badon. The Chayvayas, Stumais, big barrels of wine. These are all davar chashuv. The Chalfei Tridim, stalks of beets. The Kaluche Kruv, stalks of cabbage. With Las Yavonis and Greek gourds. So all of these 6 things are davar chashuv. These things and only these things are not batal. Rabbi Kiva Moisef, Af Kikra Shel Balabayas, even the bread of a Balabayas, the 7th thing. Haroyla Arla, of our list, those are Royla Arla. So for example, olives from a tree, Egoizim, Rimoinim, and Chavias, the grapes, they're all from trees. They would be halacha of Arla. And Klei Kerem, the Tradim, the Kruv, and the Dalas, because Klei Kerem is not in a tree, will be Klei Kerem. Rabbi Yochanan Sava, Eshedar Limana Shenino. Rabbi Yochanan holds like the Chachamim, Eshedar Limanis, and since Eagle de Vela is not one of the 6, therefore the reason it's batal is because it's not a davar chashuv. Reish Lakish Sava, Kol Shedar Limana Shenino. Reish Lakish says anything with that what you count, anything that could be counted, even if it's not counted all the time, is a davar chashuv. And Mamela, the whole reason that Eagle is batal is because it's the Rabbanon, because if not, it would be a davar chashuv and it won't be batal. Very geschmack. Yes, guys? Baruch Hashem. My chaticha, we just said chaticha, this din of truma, of carbon. We never mentioned the carbon, right? We just said chaticha, I foreshadowed you, this Gemara. My chaticha, the Tanya. Chaticha shel chatas temeya, a shtick chatas temeya, shenis arva b'meya chaticha shel chatas tehayros. It gets mixed in with 100 pieces of chatas tehayros. V'chein, prusa shel lechem aponim temeya, a piece of the lechem aponim that's tamei. Shenis arva b'meya prusa shel lechem aponim. That gets mixed in with 100 pieces of lechem aponim tehayros. Tala, it's going to go ahead. What? It's going to be oila. So this is going to be a question on Reish Lakish, correct? This is mashma. This is mashma that what? I said this is not one of the 6 things. And therefore, it's batal. Kachim, it's bottle 1 in 100. Rabbi Yehuda, Omer loy tala. Rabbi Yehuda says it's not. Guys, Rabbi Yehuda l'shitasa, min b'mina lebatel. Rabbi Yehuda, for those of us who've been around, those not have been around, get used to it. Rabbi Yehuda's of the opinion, min b'mina is lebatel. So therefore, it's not going to be batel. Al v'chaticha shel chatas tahira, shenis arav b'mei chaticha shel chul tahira. The first case was tamei tahira. Now you have chatas with chulin. So you have 100 pieces of non-konchim and 1 piece of kachim. A piece of lechem upon him that gets mixed in with 100 pieces of regular bread. Everyone would say loy sala. Everyone would say that it's not batel. Why? It's not even Rabbi Yochanan. So what's the svara? It's not one of the 6. So what's the svara? So Rabbi Yochanan says you don't have to come on to bittul here because you could sell it to a kohen. Since it's not tameya, it's the all hira. So all you did was cause a loss of price. So rather than come on to the halacha of bittul, go ahead and sell it to a kohen. It seems like bittul we're saying is a chutcha. Bittul is a b'di'evet situation that you have to come on to it. We always have the concept of eim vatlin is lechatchila. Let's say you have 59. You're not able to add 1 to make it 60, right? Why? Because it's not something that we want. Over here, even though you have the ratio, I have a workaround. I have an opt-out. What's the opt-out? Since it's speaking about, they're both tahar, chulin and truma. So good, the Yisrael can't eat it, but a kohen could. So it's not pshat that it's not bottle because it's chashiv. It's not bottle because I don't have to come on to bittul. I don't have to come on to bittul because I can sell it to a kohen. That's the reason. Ketani miyas reisha tala. We said in the reisha that what? That it's oila. So you see what? Because a piece of meat is not what? One of the 6 things. So it's a kashem reish lakish, because usually meat is sold b'minyan. Rav Chia, Rav Huna, to answer up what? Reish lakish, bini mucha. It's speaking bini mucha. It's speaking where it was what? It was not a davashem b'minyan. It was speaking where the meat was what? It was melted. It was melted. So since it's melted, it's not a davar chashiv, and therefore, according to me, you can go ahead what and I agree, Reish Lakish, that it would be shaykh to bittul. Hihachi my time of Rabbi Yehuda. If it's speaking about nimucha, what's the reason of Yehuda that says it's not batel? Why it should be? It says Rabbi Yehuda tamei dama min b'mina le batel, right? But it's Rabbi Yehuda according to his shita that min b'mina is not batel. Okay, so Bez Hashem, we'll meet again Motzei Shabbos.